The first thing people often ask is why. Why do some human beings cross a line so extreme that it feels almost unreal? Cannibal killers sit at the far edge of what we think is possible, forcing us to confront the darkest corners of the human mind. This documentary is not about shock for its own sake. It is about understanding how ordinary lives can twist into something monstrous, how warning signs are missed, and how evil sometimes hides in plain sight. For most of us, evil is distant. It lives in movies, myths, or old history books. But for the families and communities who encountered these killers, evil was a person they spoke to, trusted, or ignored. A neighbor, a friend, a quiet man who kept to himself. That is what makes these stories so disturbing. The monsters did not arrive announcing themselves. They blended in. One of the most infamous cases began with a man who, by all outward appearances, was painfully normal. He held a job, spoke politely, and lived without drawing attention. Inside his private world, however, violent fantasies were growing stronger with time. He later described feeling emotionally empty, disconnected from other people, as if something essential was missing. Instead of seeking help, he fed those thoughts in isolation, allowing them to evolve into obsession. When he finally acted, the act itself shocked investigators not just because of what he did, but because of how methodical and calm he appeared afterward. To him, it was not chaos. It was control. Survivors and detectives often describe the same chilling detail. These killers rarely appear frantic or impulsive. Many plan extensively. They rehearse conversations. They imagine outcomes. In interviews, some even speak with pride, believing they were smarter than everyone else. This sense of superiority becomes part of the pathology. They are not just committing murder. They believe they are transcending ordinary human limits. Another case unfolded in a rural community where people valued privacy and minded their own business. Neighbors noticed strange smells and unusual behavior, but dismissed it as eccentricity. The killer lived alone, socially withdrawn, with a history of trauma and neglect. Psychologists later pointed to early childhood experiences marked by abuse, abandonment, and humiliation. Food, power, and violence became psychologically linked in his mind. What horrifies experts is not just the crimes themselves, but how long they continued without intervention. Evil did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, unnoticed. Law enforcement officers who work these cases often carry the weight for life. Many describe sleepless nights, not because of what they saw, but because of what it revealed about human nature. One investigator said the hardest part was realizing that if circumstances had been slightly different, the killer might have lived and died unnoticed. That possibility lingers long after the case is closed. In some instances, cannibal killers actively sought victims through deception. They used charm, sympathy, or shared interests to build trust. Online spaces became hunting grounds where loneliness was exploited. Victims were not reckless or foolish. They were human. They believed in good faith, and that trust was weaponized against them. Families later described the pain of knowing their loved one's kindness was used as a trap. Mental health professionals caution against simple explanations. Not all cannibal killers are psychotic. Not all were abused. There is no single cause. Instead, these cases often involve a dangerous combination of factors: untreated mental illness, social isolation, violent fantasy reinforcement, and a lack of accountability. When these elements align, the results can be catastrophic. One chilling pattern appears again and again. Before the murders, there are signals. Disturbing jokes that go too far. Obsessive interests that intensify. a withdrawal from reality. People notice, but they hesitate to act. They do not want to overreact. They do not want to accuse. In hindsight, those moments become unbearable to remember. Victims' families speak of a different kind of suffering. Beyond grief, there is stigma. The nature of the crime draws sensational headlines, reducing their loved ones to a single horrifying detail. Many families fight to remind the world that the victims were more than what happened to them. They were sons, daughters, friends, and parents with full lives that deserve to be remembered. In courtrooms, cannibal killers often present another contradiction. Some express remorse, though experts debate whether it is genuine or performative. Others show none at all, speaking about their crimes with emotional detachment. Judges and juries are left to decide punishment in cases that feel beyond comprehension. Life sentences and maximum penalties are common, not only for justice, but for public safety. What do these encounters with evil teach us? First, that monsters are rarely obvious. Second, that ignoring warning signs can have devastating consequences. And third, that understanding does not mean excusing. Studying these killers is not about sympathy for perpetrators. It is about prevention, awareness, and protecting future lives. Communities that have lived through these crimes often change forever. Trust erodes. Fear lingers. Yet many also respond with resilience. Support groups form. Mental health awareness increases. Families turn grief into advocacy, pushing for better systems to identify and help people before violence occurs. True crime stories often focus on the killer, but the real lesson lies elsewhere. Evil thrives in silence, isolation, and neglect. It weakens when people pay attention, speak up, and take mental health seriously. While we may never fully understand why some individuals cross such extreme boundaries, we can learn how to recognize danger earlier and how to respond more responsibly. As unsettling as these stories are, they force an uncomfortable truth. Evil is not always distant. Sometimes it lives next door. And the difference between prevention and tragedy can be as small as a conversation, an intervention, or the courage to say something feels wrong. This documentary ends not with answers, but with responsibility. Remember the victims, learn from the patterns, and never assume that evil will announce itself before it arrives.